Today, we are going to make a cute bunny plush and learn how to finger knit. To get started, you will need your hands, some snips, and some yarn. Chunky yarn will work best for this. To begin, hold your left hand out palm side up. Hold the tail of the yarn between your thumb and index finger. Take the working side of the yarn under the index finger, over the middle finger, under the ring finger, and over the pinky. Now, wrap it around your pinky and reverse this motion by going over the ring finger, under the middle finger, and over the index. Now that we have one full row of stitches, repeat this process. Now, we should have 2 stitches on each finger. This is the wrapping step. To begin knitting, start with the pinky. Slowly pull the first lower stitch up and over the upper stitch and off the finger completely. Repeat this for each finger. You should still have 1 stitch on each finger. This was the knitting step. Now, repeat the wrapping step, going over, under, over, then back again, so that each finger has 2 stitches. Then, doing the knitting step, pulling each stitch off the finger from the pinky inward. You are officially knitting. These stitches won't look like much yet, but after 4 to 5 rows, you will begin to have a fluffy tube shape coming from the back of your hand. You can now let go of the tail between your thumb and index finger. Now that you are a pro finger knitter, continue these 2 steps until your tube is about 17 inches long. The number of rows to get there will be determined by how fluffy and chunky your yarn is. Once you have reached the 17-inch mark, it's time to bind off your 4 stitches. You will do this after finishing a knitting step when you only have 1 stitch on each finger. Again, starting with the pinky, pull this stitch off of your finger and place it onto the ring finger. Pull the original ring finger stitch up and over the pinky stitch off the finger. Repeat this, putting this stitch onto the middle finger and pulling that lower stitch up and over and off the finger. Take that one to the index finger and repeat. You now should have 1 stitch left. Leaving a 6 to 7 inch tail, cut the yarn and thread it through one side of the stitch. Now gently pull to cinch this together. This will be the body of your bunny. Now you're going to make another one of these that's only 15 inches long, so repeat this process. Once you have finished these, go ahead and set the shorter one aside. We're going to be working with this 17-inch long piece. It's going to have 2 tails on it. Now, pick one end and go ahead and start threading the tail of the yarn through the middle of the piece. This is going to be the ears of the bunny, so we're simply trying to fluff it up. Depending on how tall you want your bunny ears, take this down to about 3 to 4 inches. Leave the tail sticking out of the middle. Now repeat this on the other side, weaving the tail of the yarn through the latter of these stitches. Now wrap the tail around these 2 bunny ears and secure this with a knot. Any knot will do, anything that will hold it into place. Next, we're going to make the bunny's feet. So grab the bottom portion of the loop that you have made and go ahead and tie it off. Just tie off the end so that it's kind of like a little balloon on the end. Repeat this for the other side and make sure to leave enough space later to make some arms. So repeat this step, making these just a little bit smaller than the feet. Repeat this on the other side for your other arm. And remember, you can always adjust these if you don't love the size. You now have 2 bunny ears, 2 arms, and 2 feet. Next, we're just gonna kind of hide these little tails. They don't need to be perfect. Just kind of hiding those inside it. To make the face, we are going to take our 15-inch knit portion and we are going to wrap this around where the face should be. This is going to make the face and the head a lot fluffier than it was. So again, we're just attaching the tail of one end of this knit piece, wrapping it around a few times, and then tying it back on again. Doesn't need to be perfect. This will give us a fluffy bunny face. Next, we're going to add some eyeballs with some buttons and add a little nose to give it some personality. Give it a few squishes just to adjust the ears, arms, legs, and the face, and make it look just how you want. And that is how you finger knit a bunny.
Hey everybody, I'm Keech Rainwater, your guest mentor for Studio NPL, back with another tip on filmmaking. And today we're going to talk about lenses, okay? Sometimes there's a little bit of mystery about lenses that people don't seem to understand, and I'm going to try and clear that up the best I can today. Okay, so really when you're talking about in the world of filmmaking, there's two kinds of lenses. There's zoom lenses, which is like this one here. That's where you have the lens and you can go really wide, like a wide shot, and you can zoom in and get really close on a subject and zoom back out. That's all fine and good, and those are great for like running and gunning and stuff, but one of the problems with zoom lenses is that there's a lot of glass in there, and there's two problems with that. One is quality. Sometimes if you get a lot of glass in a lens, the detail, the amount of detail that you want to get out of your shot is kind of softened a little bit because there's so much glass in these zoom lenses. And then the other kind of the other kind of lens that we're going to talk about is a prime. A prime lens means that it's a set focal length. In other words, there's a whole set of primes here. I have a whole set of them. There's supposed to be 6 of them, but I think my other one's on another camera. But here's a set of 6. So we've got like an 8mm, a 9.5, a 12, there's 16, a 25, and a 50. So that's kind of like the same as a zoom lens. So a zoom lens will run through all those numbers starting with the lowest, like the 8, let's say 8, and then you zoom in a little further and it would be a 9.5, and then you zoom in a little further and it would be, but the problem is the light level coming in. You lose a lot of light with these zoom lenses. So one of the cool things about primes is they work at a very low f-stop. So if you are, for instance, shooting at night, or you're shooting in a room that's a little bit darker and you need that light, you need to be able to open that lens up, a prime will let you do that. Will let you open up the lens to a really, really low light setting. And also the quality is better on a lens. If you want to get detail of somebody's face or some really, really fine detail of a subject, you get better quality with the prime than you do with the zoom. Now zooms are great for running and gunning, and if you're short on time, you've got plenty of light, like say you're outside or something, and you want to be able to change the focal length really quickly without having to switch the lens, then a zoom lens is the way to go. But if you're in a low light situation and you need the quality and you have a little bit of extra time to change out the lens, then the primes are the way to go. You know, prime lenses. But like I said, they are all, basically every prime lens has a set focal length that it is. It's either really zoomed in really far and it stays that way, or it's a medium, or it's a really wide lens. So hopefully that sort of demystifies a little bit about lenses. And when you go to shoot your next film, you'll hopefully get to choose whether you want to use a prime or a zoom, and you'll know what that means and what the quality implications are to that. So anyway, this is Keech Rainwater. I am your guest mentor today on Studio NPL, and we'll see you next time.
Hey, it's S-Rap. I'm a hip hop artist and spoken word artist, and I'm here today with Studio NPL through Southern Word. And today we are going to dive into FL Studio. And FL Studio is a DAW that's used to be able to make beats, as well as to record, to mix, to master, the whole gamut. And I'm so excited to show you, just in a crash course, the different elements, the different windows, so that you can become more acquainted, as well as how to build a project and arrange a project from scratch, and how to export that out so you now have an MP3 file. So without further ado, let's jump in. Okay, perfect. So what I want to do today is just dive directly into FL Studio. Now, I'm not going to be going over the specifics of how to use every single feature of this program because it is extremely robust, but I do want to just kind of give you a crash course so you can get set up, you can kind of play with some stuff on your own, and then you can start working to where you can end up creating your own projects. So first, we're just gonna kind of pop around a little bit. There's like 4 main windows that I kind of want to show you, just so this way you can kind of like be familiar. I know it already looks kind of crazy. So just to kind of give you some basic places to kind of look and navigate, you have your toolbar up here, your menu panel. This is where you're gonna find a lot of stuff that you need, you know, like your file, edit, all these different things. This window over here, this is your browser window. This is basically where if you have files that are loaded up within the image line FL Studio folder, you can actually have them for quick access here. So you don't have to keep pulling up Finder, but you can actually just go right here. So you have this right here. This is what we call the channel rack. Let me go ahead and just add some other drum sounds in so you can kind of just get an idea of what's happening here. So we have like a clap. I'm gonna drop that in there, and then we have like a kick. I'm gonna drop that in there, and then we got like some hi-hats. Or like a shaker, right? And as you can see, you kind of have like the name of the file here. You got these weird little buttons. And so what these buttons are, this is basically a step sequencer. And if you don't know what a step sequencer is, you just kind of click on these, they're gonna kind of highlight, and then you're gonna just basically press spacebar and it's gonna play. And then you're gonna see this playhead move, and while it's moving, it's gonna play whatever is highlighted. So what you can do is you can start arranging it out to a beat. So just because I kind of know where some things are, like we could do something like this, and then we could do like every other one. Now, when you're playing in the channel rack, you can keep adding other sounds here. Notice that you have this green button. This little light over here just lets you know whether this channel is active. If I click that, it's gonna mute it. If I control and click, it's gonna allow me to just solo that specific one by itself. So on Mac, it's Command. On PC, it's gonna be Control. This right here is a panning knob, so you can send the sound to the left or to the right. And then this right here is the volume knob, so you can actually change the volume here. And this right here is really important. This is where you are sending it to the mixer window. And so we'll talk about that in a minute. And then of course you can take a sound and you can click on it, and now you have a bunch of, like a window that pops up that has a bunch of other features. We can talk about that a little bit later because it's not as important right now. The main thing is just kind of get you going. So if you look up here, we have this where it says PAT and song. This is basically switching between pattern. And pattern is just kind of like making sure that whatever you have selected in this specific channel rack is playing. And you see right here where it says pattern 1, if I go up, it goes to a different pattern, and notice that it's completely empty, and you can isolate your sounds that way. And then song is whenever it's playing not in the channel rack anymore, but it's playing right here in the playlist window. So before we jump there, let's talk about this channel rack. So you have this. Now when I press spacebar, so now you have this. Once I press spacebar, it's gonna play directly from here. I'm gonna turn the metronome off. Now notice that once it gets to the end of this lit up area, it kind of loops back from the beginning. You have all these buttons that are kind of grayed out here. What FL does is it does a really good job of only playing as much data as you have. So if I have stuff to here, notice that it opens up the next 4 bars and it's gonna loop again And then if I keep going, it'll keep going accordingly. One way you can change that, if you go right here, you can change the pattern length and then you can make it as long as you want. So, well, that's 8, 16, 32. I'd say for best recommendation is to stick with multiples of 8. So that kind of will set you up. If you do any odd numbers, it can kind of throw off the metering a bit. And then right here at the top, there is this where it says none. This is actually going to be your snap. I say go ahead and change this to line. You can kind of change this as needed, but that would definitely come in handy later. So now that we have this, and these are basically drum files. So let's talk about, let me add in like a piano, just so you can kind of see what's going on here. So I'm gonna add in, these are kind of like your plugins. This is a FL stock one, it's called FL Keys. Now notice, if I click here and add these in, which that's pretty cool, but it's annoying because it's playing the same exact note over and over, right? So if I right click on this, I see this thing called piano roll. So this is the second window that I wanted to talk to you about. And what this is basically where you can actually create melodies. So if I open this up, notice that you have all your keys over here that you can kind of scroll. We can see the notes that we did. And then at the bottom is the velocity or the volume of every single note. So now what we can do is I can take this. Let's say if I take these, I just make them a little bit longer. And notice that like I'm kind of stuck right here between these blocks. So if I click here on this magnet, which is the snap, I keep it on main so that this way I can just change it right here. And we can go to like half steps. So now we get it a little bit smaller. And so now what we can do, and then if I wanted to, I could change the notes now, right? Now notice that you see these kind of grayed out notes, but these notes are actually what is playing on other instruments, so in the background. So it's kind of like, this could be the perks or the kick or the clap, but that's kind of like ghost notes just to kind of let you see what is where. And one last thing that's really cool about this, if I click right here on this, it has this thing called stamp. And stamp is really cool because if you're not the most proficient in music theory, you can actually go right here and you can just grab chords. And instead of it, whenever you click it draws one block or one note, it's actually going to draw multiple. So let's say, for instance, if I draw a major 7th chord, now we have that. And then now let's say if I go to stamp again, I'll go to major 7th and then I'll draw one here. Maybe move it a little bit just to make sure that it's on key. Let me get rid of these. And now you notice that now that we have something moving, you kind of see these, I'm gonna switch the root note. But once you have these notes, you notice that you start to have these black notes or these black lines in between. And these are just letting you know what is in and what isn't in the scale, right? So it's very, very, very helpful. And so we can just make sure that if we have any moments where our notes aren't in the scale, we can just kind of move it. So we have, and then we can just kind of space it out. If it sounds weird, you can just keep playing and keep adjusting until you find something that works, right? And then let's say if we wanted to just keep that and copy it over and over. So yeah, let's say if we wanted to keep that and just copy it over, we could just do that. And you get the idea. And you can draw major notes, major chords, minor chords, so on and so forth. So let's say if we keep this for now, and I'm actually just gonna get rid of this and just make it a really simple progression. So let's do something like this. Cool. So it's like, okay, well, I have this main melody, but now how do I make it where it's not just with the drums the entire time? How can I separate it, right? So this is where we now talk about this window, the playlist window. And so the playlist window looks really empty. It looks really strange, but it actually is most likely what you see whenever you work in GarageBand or whenever you work in Logic or Pro Tools or any other program, because this is where it's gonna basically have your clips or your regions, and then you're gonna arrange it out into a beat. The first thing that we have to do though, we have to go back to our channel rack and notice that we have everything on this pattern. Now, if we're on the playlist window and we click, it takes what's in our pattern 1, but notice how it's everything, and we want everything separated out. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a second and I'm going to take all these different sounds and put them on their own patterns. So the easiest way that I do it, you right click, and if I go to cut, then I go to the next empty pattern, and I can just right click, go to paste. So now I move the kick. Now I'm gonna go here, I'm gonna cut, move to pattern 3, that's now the empty one. Go to the clap, paste, and then pattern 1, I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna take this percussion sound and we'll move to pattern 4, which is empty. So now notice when I'm here and it's still on pattern, that it's only playing the piano, right? But then when I switch patterns, it changes what's playing. So now notice when we're in the playlist window, you have the different patterns here, right? We have pattern 1 that now I can just drag over, pattern 2, which I can drag over, pattern 3, and pattern 4. And I know it can be confusing because you're just like pattern 1, pattern 2, pattern 3, what is this? But guess what the beautiful thing is? You can actually just click and you can actually rename things. All right, so you can just right click right here where it says pattern. You see right where it says rename and color, and I can click on it and now I can name this piano. And then I can do the same thing. So pattern 2, which is the kick. So I can just go here, kick, pattern 3, which is the clap. And this may feel a little tedious, but it does help keep your organization nice and clean. Trust me, organization is your friend and it will help you move faster. And then the last one, we're gonna say shaker. So now that we can kind of see what's going on, we can kind of arrange it out accordingly, right? But notice that I have this here, but for some reason when I press the space bar, only the channel plays. What you have to do is you have to click here and switch this from playing the pattern to playing the song, and you'll see this little playhead pop up. So now you kind of see everything happening at once, right? So then if I could take this and now I can click on this and I can actually arrange it out into almost like a little beat, right? So we have the piano come in, maybe you want to add the shaker in, right? Okay, then we have the clap come in. And then we have the kick come in, right? And then from here, you can do different stuff, like you can drop stuff out. And you can arrange it however you want, right? Which is really nice. I can go here and I can keep the individual patterns on a track and keep that focus. So I can actually right click, I can lock this, I can rename it, just whatever helps you be able to understand and see quickly and identify what's on the screen. Okay, so now let's say we have this beat, right? I'm gonna take this spot right here where everything is playing. Okay, so you have this and this is great, but it's like, man, like that shaker is really loud, the kick is a little quiet, and we need a little bit of balance and control, right? So what we're gonna do, let's go back to the channel rack, and you kind of see all your different sounds, and we're gonna assign them to different spots on the mixer window, different tracks, and that's right here. So you can click view mixer and notice this screen pops up. This is where you go when you want to add effects onto your tracks. And the first thing you have to do is you have to assign the different instruments that you have to different spots on the mixer. So we have like different tracks here that right now they're empty, and notice everything is coming out of the master. So what we want to do is we want to actually assign maybe like the piano here, kick, snare, and then hi-hat, right? So we have insert, this is channel 1. So I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna move this to 1. So now when it plays, you see the piano's playing right there, right? And then we can do the same thing. So we can go 2 for the kick, 3 for the clap, and then 4 for the percussion. Now notice that the names don't change here. So guess what we gotta do? Gotta go here and click F2, rename it piano, kick, snare, and then shaker. So we have all these happening, and then now I can go here and I can play with the panning if I want. I can play with the volume here if I want, right? So now I can bring the shaker down. And you can do some really cool things. So I can add effects when I go here, and now you have a whole list from reverb, delay, you can add flanger. FL Studio has some really cool plugins. They do some really cool things. One of my favorites is Gross Beat, but it's like, yeah, just throw these on there, just kind of load them in, and then you can just kind of play with them and see what they do. Whether it's like, right, just different stuff. So you can go here and just replace when you want to get rid of them, and you can just go to the top and go to delete. And now it's no longer there. And so this area is really good because if you have a microphone plugged up and you want to record, there's a button right here that says arm disc recording. And then you just have to make sure that there's a microphone selected here. You select it there, you'll see levels. And then when you press play, you can record. And then your audio will pop up in the playlist window. So that's how you can record directly into FL Studio. And then last but not least, final thing, so we have this track. It's amazing, okay. Maybe I might want to add just a little reverb real quick on the hi-hats. So I'm gonna kind of go here, go to the reverb. Okay, so that's kind of cool, right? So we have that reverb going. And this is just for demonstration, but so let's say we have this, we finish mixing our song, we have it arranged out, and man, it is jamming. So of course, the last thing that we want to do is we want to be able to arrange it. So when we arrange, we can actually go up here, click on this arrow, go to time markers, and you can click add one. And then I can type in intro. Notice that it now has this marker that pops up, and what you can do is you can add all these time markers and you can separate the song, and then you can just click on it and you can drag it. So you have this, and then once you put in all your markers to where you want, so I can kind of do this. Okay, now we have a full song. So now we want to make sure and do this often, but you want to make sure that you save and save it often. So we're going to name this FL Studio Demo. We have it, and now we want to be able to export it. Go to File, go to Export. You can choose the file format here between WAV or MP3. Let's go MP3 just because it's shorter. It's going to ask you the file name, so let's go ahead and click that. And then this window is going to pop up. It's going to ask you a couple questions. Mode, you want to do full song unless you want to only export the pattern selected. We want the MP3. We want it to be a stereo file, and you can do multiple file formats at the same time, which is nice. The bit rate, the higher the bit rate, the higher the quality, but also know the higher the file size. So just typically stay somewhere between, I personally stay above 192. And if I can, I try to do everything at 320. But if I ever have a client that wants a smaller file size, I might take that down to like 224 or something like that. Everything else you don't really have to worry about. And then you can just click start, you'll see this progress meter at the bottom, and it'll kind of like export everything, and then boom, once it's done, and guess what? It's finished. Okay, so we just went through all the different windows that you will encounter while you're using FL Studio, the playlist window, the channel rack, the mixer, as well as how to arrange and bring those markers into your playlist window, and then finally how to export your file. So of course we have so many other resources on this YouTube channel, and of course stay connected with Southern Word with all the programming that we offer for young people at southernword.org. So stay tuned as we continue to bring more information to you so that you can continue creating from the comfort of your own home.
If you would like to learn more about any of the tutorials you've just watched, you can find these and many more great books at the Nashville's Public Library. If you have a valid library card, you can also check out ebooks and audiobooks through the Libby and Overdrive app.